Welcome to A Date with Darkness podcast, where we will be discussing the impact of hurtful and abusive relationships and how to overcome them so that we can move through our pain to get the kind of healthy relationships we want, need, and deserve. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based out of Oakland, California. And while I hope that you find this podcast educational and informational in nature, please note it should not be substituted for treatment with a licensed mental health professional. Some of the information presented on this podcast may be sensitive or triggering in nature to some of my listeners. Therefore, listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here listening with me today. And today I have a very special guest plan. The guest for today's show is going to be Dr. Christiane Northrup. She is the author of the book Dodging Energy Vampires. And today's show is very special in that we weave both the book and her personal experiences and how the book came to fruition and the inspiration behind everything. So without further ado, here's myself and Dr. Christiane Northrup discussing her book. Hello, Dr. Northrup. Thank you for joining the show.
I'm thrilled to be here. I love the title.
Awesome. I'm glad I have a fan of the title. That's great. And so for my listeners, as you know, the show is all about healing and recovering from narcissistic abuse. And so for my listeners who don't know you or aren't well acquainted with your work, can you talk a little bit about you, what you do, and what drives your passion?
Yes. Okay. So by training, I am a board certified obstetrician gynecologist. I was an assistant clinical professor of OBGYN at the University of Vermont College of Medicine for, 25 years. I had a big practice and also taught medical students. And then, about the late 90s, I wrote my first book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. First edition was 1994. And that was a kind of a groundbreaker for women to understand the wisdom of their bodies. And then I was on the Oprah Winfrey show when she had her talk show about 10 times with various topics. I did 8 public television specials where, to help people understand their power with their bodies. But there was a missing piece, and this is what your show is about. There was a missing piece in my life where I always seemed to, in my personal relationships and some business relationships, end up overgiving, feeling drained, feeling bad about myself. Okay, so think about it. At this point, I've got, 3 New York Times best-selling books. I've been on Oprah. I've had all this PBS stuff. And I'm still feeling bad about myself in relationships, especially one-on-one relationships. And then I had a business relationship with a guy who later on I found out had 4 different passports and different names. Oh yeah, like a real psychopath, right?
Yeah.
But charming. Went all over the world. So I kind of learned a lot from that. And I worked with a psychologist, Diana Kirshner, who wrote Love in 90 Days. Diana was a dating coach, but what she said to me was, at the higher levels of business and government, the playing field is full of these narcissists. It's just full of them. And so when we think that they think like we do, we are wrong. And we also have this belief that only hurt people who've been hurt in childhood, hurt other people. Not true, turns out. And it suddenly all came together for me when I was working with this guy who was doing body work. And he was kind of larger than life. And I began to realize, oh my God, wait a minute. He's using me. I was thinking that he was helping me, but he was using me. So I put that together with some of the medical literature that shows that there's this type of personality, which we call cluster B.
Mm-hmm.
Cluster B, narcissist, sociopathy, psychopathy, histrionic, borderline personality. And I began to realize that, like any primary care doctor, 25% of my patients had this. It was this: help me, you can't. It's like they would come to me and they'd say, thank God I found you. You're the only person who can heal me. And I would impale myself on that hook because, why? Because all of us who are targeted by this type of individual have deep within us this doubt that we're okay. We have this, women, any woman is kind of waiting, unless she's a borderline or a narcissist, she's kind of waiting for someone to find out that she's not as smart as her degrees would suggest that she is. We have this feeling, and that's just from patriarchy. That, and so I finally put it together that these cluster B people who drive psychiatrists nuts, and the P6 is our psych ward, when there's a person on the ward with this personality type.
Yes.
They split up everybody else. And then there was another type, what we call the frequent flyers in the emergency room. This is people who come to the emergency room 280 times a year saying, I feel like I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
They come in with a teddy bear. That's a positive sign. If they come in with a teddy bear, then they get admitted and start demanding special meals. So anyway, I put it together. And the end result was this book, Dodging Energy Vampires, because I realized there's a type of woman. I also worked with a woman who wrote Women Who Love Psychopaths. And I couldn't believe that book was so scary to me until I realized, oh, that was the truth. That was it is that bad. It is that bad. But what we do, people like us, we give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
We give everyone, and we think that they think like we do, and that they're here to uplift. They're the kind of person who cleans up the bathroom at the gas station, right? So it's nice for the next person. And we're our biggest Achilles heel, as it were, is that we give people the benefit of the doubt. People who are not that empathic, who have better radar, they'll look at someone who says, let's say you're dating. Oh my God, my ex-wife never lets me see the children, and they do the sob story. A normal person goes, what a loser. I go, oh my God, I can help this person.
Mrs. Fix It, Dr. Fix It.
You got it. I can fix it. And not only can I fix it conventionally, I'm conventionally trained at Dartmouth Medical School, but I can also fix it with astrology and Reiki and crystals and psychic readings and medical intuitives and herbs. It's like, oh my God. Now, yes, I have a lot of tricks in my bag, but the biggest trick is if you're not on board working as hard as I am to heal you, then goodbye. Or one of my obstetrician friends says to her patients, she used to, who smoke when they're pregnant, she'd say, look, when I care more about your unborn baby than you do, there's a problem. We have a problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I put it all together, and it was almost like I wrote that book so fast. And, and I've written 900-page books.
Yes.
This sucker I wrote so fast, it was like, oh my God, almost like this is what it is. Boom. And not to blame anyone, I'm a love and light person, but I realized that's the issue, because I was giving love and light to everyone but myself. I wasn't giving myself the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
I always had the doubt. Oh my God, so what they do, these people, they have malignant intuition. They know just what you've always wanted to hear. Oh my God, you are the most gorgeous, you are the sexiest, you are, all the stuff that you want to hear about yourself, or you're so smart, whatever.
Yes.
And they're just blowing smoke to get what's called, and this one, narcissistic supply. That's the fuel with which they get through life. And they don't have a connection with their own higher power, with God. You're their connection. You're their snack. So, and they know right away who's going to respond to them, who's going to be the snack, because the people who have really good radar just go, no, sorry.
Yeah.
And Sandra Brown, the woman who wrote Women Who Like Psychopaths, did studies where she found there's a subtype of people, of women and men too, with super traits of conscientiousness, loyalty, can do, get the work done, hardworking, the traits that help us run our business, or in your case, run your podcast, get it out there, right? Those traits work beautifully every other place but this relationship, because so we pick the people who are the fixer-uppers. Like, we think that we can save them. Mm-hmm. And then you realize they do not change. And I would say the biggest heartbreak that I have seen is the woman or the man married for 25 years to one of these dark characters who they think they're going to be able to help. They can never help them. They get drained. And then when they finally stand up for themselves and create a boundary, the other person leaves and is remarried in 15 minutes. It's so heartbreaking, because you say to yourself, did he or she ever really love me? And the answer is no, because they can't. They don't have it. Mm-hmm. And now, and empaths are always asking, well, how did they get that way? Or how can we help them? That's the wrong conversation. It's, how can I help myself? Because the most loving thing we can do to one of these people is hold up a mirror and say, enough, I'm going to take care of me. Now, yeah, they'll move on to the next person. Sure. But eventually, it is my hope, as we get savvy, they won't have nearly as many receptor sites, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I will tell you at this point, and because I have that, congenital blindness to darkness. I have congenital blindness to it, not so much anymore. Like, if someone's really good looking, really charismatic, I assume they're an energy vampire until proven otherwise, because I can get sucked in. Yes. But I have a couple good friends. And if I'm really overly enthusiastic about somebody, I run it by my friends and they'll tell me, and they're always right, because I can't see it. So I hire someone else's eyes or heart or whatever. And I said to my assistant, Diane, we've worked together for 40 years. So she's seen them coming and going. Oh my God. And I said to her, now listen, you don't get to tell me 3 years later that you knew this was going to happen. You got to have the ovaries to step up and tell me now. Yes. Yeah. And then, and I'll listen to you. I promise I'll listen. In fact, I've got to notice whenever I start making excuses for someone's crappy behavior, I'm in trouble. I just, oh, well, she's like that because whatever. So I have learned, remember, darkness is a character disorder. It's not a chemical sensitivity in the brain. It's not an allergy. It's not from their crappy childhood. It's a character disorder. Character is defined as what you do when no one's looking, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you came up with Dodging Energy Vampires from all of this.
Well, you know what happened is I saw a subgroup of women who were never getting well. PMS.
Well, physically, you mean?
Physically, chronic Lyme, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, adrenal fatigue, all these things, the mystery illnesses. And I'd find in every case, they were living with a mother, a father, a child, a husband, a wife who was an energy vampire. So every time they'd get their energy back, it would leak out again, because they were living with someone who was literally sucking out their bone marrow almost.
So that's kind of like your version of the Kaiser ACE study.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I got to tell you, I looked at that study years ago. You remember Vince Felitti started that study because he was working in the weight loss clinic of Kaiser Permanente in San Diego, remember? And this one woman, she was 18, and was 100 pounds overweight. And she
Mm.
started to lose weight. And then she stopped, and he asked her what was going on. And she'd been raped and gained 100 pounds after that. And she said, overweight is overlooked. And that's what I need to be. So it was self-protection.
Yes.
So Felitti starts the whole ACE study, which frankly should be front page news every day in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, all of it. But as far as I can tell, all the mainstream media is owned by darkness.
Yes.
So you are never going to see this news story. I mean, when I saw the ACE study, which has now been taken over by the CDC,
yes,
so they've done nothing with it because
yes,
they just want everybody to have 92,000 vaccines by the age of 18. But it's another subject we won't go into. But anyhow, the ACE study, didn't you feel like, doesn't that just say it all?
mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of a wealth of information behind the original ACEs study. I do believe there's a lot to be said for adverse child experiences. So,
Oh my God, yes.
Absolutely. And I definitely think if we start, like you said, to heal those wounds inwardly, then outwardly, it's definitely going to show up as well.
That's the whole point. And each of us has our own darkness, each of us. And each of us has the responsibility to look inside and heal our own darkness. And for me, and for, thousands of people in my community, seeing the ways in which we gave ourselves away over and over and over because we didn't feel good about ourselves. We didn't feel whole. For whatever reason, because you're female or because you're overweight or because you're over 50 or whatever it is. It's our job to transform that into a higher vibration. And when we do that, and when enough of us does that, then we have a complete, that's the tipping point that Malcolm Gladwell talks about. And it only takes, we know this from the studies of conflict resolution, it only takes 1% of people raising their vibration to flip the whole. And I think that's where we are right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with people that were attracted to or in these relationships with, toxic people, narcissistic people, or people with strong cluster B traits, how did that show up in gynecological care?
Oh, it showed up first. I would do this problem list, and I would notice that they seemed to be, there was a certain group of people with PMS. I was kind of the PMS queen of Southern Maine in the 80s because no doctors believed in PMS. Nobody. And I realized that it was a lifestyle problem. And I would get people on the right supplements, the right diet. They'd feel better, they'd be great for 3 months. And then they would crash. They couldn't sustain it. And I realized it was because of who they were living with. It was, was there an alcoholic in the family, or were they the alcoholic, or whatever it is? I began to realize that there was a pattern that was very much like people were acting like they were adult children of alcoholics. And I found that the people who had the worst PMS were the ones with the most alcoholism in the family. And I knew that was related to sugar. But I didn't realize back then how much was related to having one of these cluster Bs in their life, or being one of these cluster Bs. Because I found that there was a certain group of patients, my big wake-up call was a woman who had all this bleeding, and finally she nearly bled to death. She didn't want surgery, she didn't want a hysterectomy. I wanted to keep people out of the operating room. But one day she just bled so many units, and I said to her, okay, if you leave the emergency room, she needed 4-unit transfusion, I can't be your doctor anymore, because I'm like way out on a limb here in my own profession, trying to keep you from having this surgery, which I appreciate. I know why you don't want it. No, she went along with it. It was fine. And she turned into this contrite little girl, and I did the surgery, and I kept her awake. I mean, she had an epidural anesthetic, so, I could show her with a mirror what I was doing. I mean, control on her part, right? And then she gets out of the hospital, And I get a letter from her, and she says, that surgery felt like a rape. Like, wow, to me, I thought I was saving your life. But, hey, potatoes, tomatoes. And so I did something stupid in retrospect. I sent her a certified letter because she was out of trouble. She was healing great. And I said, you can no longer be my patient. Well, when you take something away from a borderline, they get really agitated. So I realized what I should have done is had a very structured interaction with her from that moment on. But I kept feeling her very real, by the way, very real pain inside.
Absolutely.
But she's the only one that could deal with that. And you probably know DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy. And we didn't have that at the time.
Yes.
I certainly didn't know about it. But I would have said, you need to go and learn some skills, Marsha Linehan skills here. But I didn't know. And so she put up a website. This was way before Google and all that, but she put up a website, My Ordeal at the Hands of Dr. Christiane Northrup. And she'd show up at all my book signings with, this evil eye, like a poster board thing with an evil eye.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how I realized, ooh, I took away her narcissistic supply. I took away mommy, and she got enraged. So I learned the hard way.
That is so scary.
I was.
How did that end for you?
This is interesting. I got a restraining order from the court system. They gave me the restraining order. And then, okay, now this is how dumb I was, all right? After the restraining order, she wrote to me all contrite, like, little girl, would you be willing to meet me for mediation? I did it. I mean, I did that. Okay, imagine. So I met with her, and I remember the lawyer saying to me, you are a saint. It's like, no, you're not a saint. You're a fool. You're a fool.
Well, that's kind of his job to help prevent that from happening. His or her job.
That's really true. I never could have met with her to mediate, anything. But she just, here's the deal. All she wanted was contact. She just wanted contact. So if anyone listening obviously has one of these in their lives, I'm sure that's what you deal with all the time. How do you set a boundary? It's boundary, 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 boundary.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they can escalate and get very scary.
Absolutely.
She had just enough money to keep that website in the search engine optimization in the top 3. Now that was back then. So I mean, it's probably buried out to number 13 now. I don't know. But if anyone's interested, you can go read it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, and it scared the people coming for the book signings. You can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then it's just not. It's not a good look, and it's not something you want to be associated with. So I can certainly understand how scary that was for you.
Yeah. That's because nobody really, aren't you finding this, is people are just now understanding personality disorder, character disorder. We have not, in the mental health professions, in the medical professions, we have not identified this.
Absolutely. And I think, even now, just, doing the work that I do, a lot of mental health professionals shy away from it just because of, similar to your experience, they can be very difficult to deal with. It can be very litigious to deal with someone like that. And no one wants that. That people just typically want easy peasy, high achieving, functioning clients from my end of the spectrum. And so to work with that is, like you said, a lot of energy to deal with personalities like that.
One of my mentors has been George Simon, who wrote In Sheep's Clothing, a wonderful psychologist, and a book called Character Disturbance. And George said when he started to teach this to therapists 25, 30 years ago, many of them would leave the room. They did not want to believe that this went on. I mean, we're so loving, so empathetic. You want to help someone, and you don't realize that the way to help them is rock solid boundaries
It is.
because
It
they
is.
don't have any.
And so do you feel like that's part of an empath struggle, is this sense of like denial and just wanting to be so caught up in helping people that you're in denial?
Absolutely. And you probably know this other phenomenon that Melanie Tonya Evans from Australia talks about, and that is that these people are surrounded by flying monkeys, the high functioning ones, flying monkeys that go out and do their bidding. So the minute you wake up, let's say you're in a family and you suddenly realize that your father's one of these characters or your mother, and
Sure.
you stand up for yourself. Well, your siblings very, very often, because they want mom's attention, will go in a circle around mom and you're the outlier. It's very, very painful in families when one person wakes up to what's really going on. No one else in the family system wants to hear it. And we all want the Hallmark card. I mean, we all want, you know, the Hallmark special. What I tell people is the only place that these narcissists ever change is in the movies. they don't.
Absolutely. I
They
would
don't
agree.
pick up at Christmas and, you know, come in like Ebenezer Scrooge. They don't.
Absolutely. So when you started making these discoveries and you wrote this book,
Yeah.
can you share a little bit about how you might have started implementing this in your practice?
Yes.
Like being
Yes.
able to dodge an energy vampire.
Okay. So first of all, if you have someone who is overly charming, who brings a lot of gifts, then your antenna should go up, and you begin to treat them special. You begin to treat them as special. And again, your antenna should go up because they're charismatic, maybe extremely good looking, and you feel like, oh, they have chosen me. They have chosen me. And then they call for an appointment and you want to get them right in. And so, before long, they're kind of running the place. So the first thing you do, if this begins to happen,
Yeah.
you just have solid rules and you don't treat them any differently from anyone else, because they get special treatment very often wherever they go, because they don't have boundaries or they're violating boundaries in ways that you never would. So you notice those characteristics. Then when and this is, if you think about the emergency room visits, right? Someone doing 280 emergency room visits a year. I mean, that's very common.
It is.
Marsha Linehan talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel suicidal? Yes, I feel suicidal. Now, with Marsha Linehan, that really tough love, where they say, I feel suicidal. And she says to them, so why don't you do it?
Exactly. She does.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get somebody who looks at them like they're an adult and says, stop it. Why are you doing that? Or I don't know if you ever saw the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson.
Oh gosh, one of my favorites. Yes.
Yeah, so he's got the OCPD, right? He's got obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's a funny movie.
Absolutely.
But I love the scenes where he goes to his therapist and he barges in and the therapist says, look, you don't have an appointment. I cannot see you. That's a beautiful example of boundaries. The deal with gynecology is, in many cases, gynecology is so close to psychiatry. Honest to God, it's like the brain uterus. Yes, because everything that happens with the menstrual cycle, with conceiving, with pregnancy, with PMS, with all that is completely related to how someone is thinking, and most especially the stress hormones, cortisol and epinephrine. Yeah. So when cortisol and epinephrine are high, the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis is off. And so very often, I mean, in residency, I used to be called up to the psych ward all the time. They'd send people down. There's a real connection. Or like someone who's having irregular bleeding, and you find out that it's related to some kind of stress in their life, or, incest, very common, or being raped, that kind of thing. Wow. So there's this big overlap. You have to find out what's going on. But what I would say at this point is begin to suspect character disorder, where they are asking your staff to make special exceptions all the time. That's just routine. Or they want an appointment right away. Or they are rushing the front desk. And we saw a lot of that, where they're always up, in my nurse's face, like standing in front of her. And now some of that, is just the people who came up from New York. That's just how they were, So I began to notice, and then there's some strategies. And one is, when you begin to feel drained like this, you need to be prepared with some phrases. And one is, I simply can't. You ask you to do, I simply can't. I simply can't. Another is gray rock. I kind of like the gray rock strategy. This works with coworkers. They come up, they want your energy. You just pretend you're a gray rock. I had a community member who told me, I did that at work. She said, I felt so guilty. Like, because she'd been giving everyone, remember, we're like the cheerleading squad. So she, nope, I'm just going to do my work. But it's important you feel guilty. And then the other one, let's say you've got one, this is like a, garden variety, borderline or narcissist in your life, who's always calling you, but only when they want something, right? Very common. That's the only time they call. Well, I'm moving and I need to borrow your truck, or I'm moving and would you come and help me pack? Or can I drop the kids off because, I have a nail appointment. It's just, they only call when they want something. So what you do in those cases, two things. One, when they ask you, you've got to stop the train. An empath or a good person will automatically want to help. If someone asks you, you want to help. Sure. You want to say yes. So instead you go, I'll get back to you, or let me think about it. Sure. So that's what we call high school level. Postgraduate level is when you say, I simply can't. That won't work for me. Now notice when you do that, how guilty you feel. I say, I'm a bad person, whatever. Then another one that it works very, very well is you get to have a problem. So that's broken wing. Diana Kirshner taught me this one, broken wing. They call you, and she told me, by the way, in her practice, in all these years of dealing with high-end character disorder, she's never, ever had a problem because of broken wing. So they call, and you have a problem. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm coming down with a cold. I'm just not feeling well. This isn't a good time for me. When you have a problem, they will leave so quickly, because they can see they're not going to get their narcissistic supply snack from you.
So you've identified that. Well, let me ask you this, because you talked about in the beginning your struggle.
Yeah.
Right. Which a lot of people still have a very similar struggle if they are an empath, or if they were just brought up to cater to others, or they were just wired that way. Do you feel like, in your opinion, that giving like that is something that you could truly ever get over? Like you can truly reprogram yourself to not be that way?
Yes, you
without
can.
feeling the guilt and without doing all of that.
Yeah, you absolutely can. But what it is, it has to do with this work, the kind of thing I've written about for years.
Yes.
Where you keep practicing the causes of health. And this is put forth by Dr. Mario Martinez, who started the Biocognitive Institute. Mm-hmm. And the causes of health are elevated cognition, exalted emotions, and righteous anger. So righteous anger is a good one. Very often, women in particular turn anger inward, and it causes depression. I know that's like, a truism, except that it's true. Sure. Men punch out walls, women get depressed. But when you understand righteous anger, which is when your innocence or that of another has been threatened, and then you actually express the anger in a safe way that doesn't harm anyone else, you're moving through an energy. And especially when you get support for having that kind of anger. Okay, so let's say you're Australian now, and the government has turned a blind eye to what the scientists have been saying for years about what could happen to Australia, and now it has happened, and the politicians are just saying the same old thing. That would create righteous anger, because you're right to be angry about that.
Mm-hmm.
And but you don't stay there. You don't let it become your identity. And this is where we get into the pain body work of Eckhart Tolle. So he talks about we all have a pain body, which is a semi-autonomous consciousness that we inherit. So we've got, the pain of all women, pain body, the pain of being Native American, or the pain of being Eastern European, or being a Holocaust survivor, or whatever it is. Everybody inherits a pain body when they come in, and they may get it from their parents. It's in the DNA. And, we have that wonderful book, It Didn't Start With You. Can't remember the name of the author, but I know you know it.
Yes.
And so each of us has to deal with that part of ourselves. And when we do, we find that we come to our true nature. So at this point, I'm trying to give you an example of how it feels for me compared to the past. So I used to go into the hospital, into the doctor's lounge. And because of my ideas and my beliefs in stuff that wasn't like conventional medicine, I was always kind of certain that I was going to be removed from the hospital staff. This sort of feeling of, oh my God, what do I have to do to fit in? How do I pass for a conventional doctor? I mean, my daughter, my oldest daughter, when she was 8, she says to me, Mom, are you a doctor? I said, yeah, I'm a doctor. Her father was an orthopedic surgeon. She says to me, well, you're not what you'd expect. So you see the problem. I wasn't what they expected. I'm bringing in Reiki. I'm doing therapeutic touch down in the radiology department. Now, I would do those same things that I did then, but absolutely on purpose. And I don't care who sees me. I'm not trying to hide anything that I am from anybody. It used to be, if there was in a lecture, like if I was giving a lecture and there were 500 people in the audience, I would focus on the 2 generally white-haired, patriarchal males who were rolling their eyes, and try to get it so that they liked me. Now I make, and I would always go like radar to the 1, 2, 3 people in that room who didn't like what I was saying, and try to perform to get them to like me. Now I don't care. Now, social media has brought this to a whole new level. I used to get one letter, and if it was a critical, and they were often from the character disordered people, because you can't do enough for them. You can't do right by them.
Oh, yeah.
I would have 2 weeks of feeling bad about myself from one of those letters. Now on Facebook, I mean, I do a Facebook Live, and some of the comments I get, like, girl, you need to do something about your brows. It's like, yeah, but I was talking about this. I mean, do you think we could move into a slightly deeper end of the pool here?
Yeah.
But in the past, that kind of comment would have stopped me in my tracks. Oh my God, are my brows that bad? Or is my eyeliner off? Or is my hair not what it ought to be? Now, when someone does that on a Facebook Live and I read it out loud, I just go, yeah, you're probably right. It's Teflon now. It goes right off me. And it didn't used to. I took everything that was said and I would use it to, God, are they right? Do I need to improve that? Whatever it is. And now with social media, you can't possibly please everybody. You can't possibly adjust yourself to make yourself acceptable to everybody. Then also with the algorithms now, they have my stuff go to people who don't know who I am at all. And then you get some real hatred from that. How did you show up on my feed? That kind of thing. And so
yes.
It's an opportunity now for me to realize the truth, which has always been the truth, which is that is actually about them. That's not about me. And how awful must it be to have that kind of darkness in your head all the time that you got to splay it out on social media? Who would do that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of darkness. Now, are they in pain? I think the answer to that needs to be, that is not my job to figure out.
Exactly.
I've spent a lifetime trying to figure that out. And here's what Sandra Brown points out. This is so important. She said, if you tell a woman with super traits of loyalty and all the rest, that there's a chance, that there's 1 in a million chance that her man could change, she'll hang around for the next 200 years because there's a chance. It's like the movie Dumb and Dumber. Oh, you mean there's a chance? I have a chance? Like that. Oh, God. So, we really have to be protected from ourselves.
Absolutely. What do you feel like has been the most critical in your inner work?
The most critical, actually, is the work that led to Goddesses Never Age. The work that led to that book, which was, I had turned whatever it was, because I don't do those aging portals, because I don't want my DNA to know. So I've sort of stepped out of that. You look at the age on your driver's license and you go, that doesn't apply to me. Well, let's put it this way. So I had one of those milestone birthdays that I don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And I was feeling, and I said to my daughter, listen, don't make a big deal of this. And of course, not only did she make a big deal of it, she told the entire world, and everybody sent video clips of, oh yes, she's turning whatever it was. And I was so uncomfortable. And then I went to Buenos Aires to dance tango for 3 weeks, which was like going into purgatory, because, they don't really start the dancing till 11 at night. And my second day there, I'm going down the street, and some dude rips the necklace off my neck in broad daylight at 2 p.m, like scratches my neck. Wow. And it was a goddess necklace, that very expensive, that a whole bunch of friends went in on for me for my birthday, with a little diamond. It was gold. And I had been told Buenos Aires is perfectly safe. Well, once you get there, you realize, oh, no. There are people on the bus, young ruffians with needles, and they'll stick your hand till you give them your cell phone. I had no idea. I mean, talk about innocence.
Wow.
And so, and I was in an unrequited love relationship. I was divorced, and I thought, oh my God, I have become a caricature. I've become a single woman, middle-aged woman living alone with cats. Okay. And I was determined that wasn't going to be my life. So I needed to live the messages of Mario Martinez' Mind Body Code, where he has studied 700 people over the age of 100 to find out what they do. Healthy centenarians. Yes. Like he points out, geriatrics is the study of the pathology of aging. It's not, as Mario says, getting older is the opportunity to increase our value and competence. And, and he also says getting older is inevitable, aging is optional. And then I knew all the work of Ellen Langer on mindfulness, and how she remember all those guys who took to the monastery, and they acted as though they were in their prime, acted Absolutely. As if, and their hearing improved and their eyesight improved. And so I began to realize that there's an enormous amount of plasticity in our mind, body, in our lives. And I had to become the woman that the kind of man I was interested in would love. I had to become that. And in doing so, I partnered with myself. So everything that I had wanted in a man, I created in my own life. So, financial abundance, a really shored up first chakra. No man was ever going to tell me again, like in my marriage, what I could spend on a dress for my very first book tour when we're both surgeons. I mean, come on. The very fact that I even let that happen astounds me now.
Yeah.
So I became a new woman. I did it. And now when I go, it doesn't bother me if I eat alone at a restaurant or if I fly by myself somewhere. I revel in my own company. And so, of course, as a result, since I never cared anymore, I met the man of my dreams, you know. But it's still like I'll never have that gnawing sense of being incomplete that led to vampire relationships in the first place. It's like, so that inside, deep inside me has been healed in a profound way, but that's because the work that you do, the work that I do, it works. You just have to do it.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, you know, when you write, when you do things like this, podcasts, videos,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of people that come out of the woodworks that say, you know what, this is happening to me too. It's like, oh my God, you were speaking about me. And I'm curious, you know, like you said, when you wrote the book and when you were kind of, you know, up and coming as a doctor, a well-renowned doctor, what did you think when all of these women or other people started to identify with everything that you were saying and this thing really took off?
I thought it was a miracle. I didn't think that my work would be accepted in my lifetime, let alone that it would, you know, that it would be out there in the way that it has been. I still consider it an absolute miracle. It's a gift from God. And but the biggest compliment that I've ever gotten is when women or sometimes men pick up a book or listen to a podcast or whatever, and they say, you are articulating what I've always known to be true, but I never heard a medical professional say it. And that's when I realized that all of my years in the institutions of conventional medicine, in the hallowed halls of Dartmouth Medical School, of Tufts New England Medical Center, all those years have given me the gravitas and the credentials to say to someone, your inner wisdom knows best.
Yes.
There's no test, there's no PET scan, there's no anything that is nearly as important as your own inner healer. And if I can be a bridge to that, that is, you know, it's kind of like, that is more than enough. But I've been astounded, first of all, by the truth. When you're speaking the truth and you're coming from a place that is not an inflated ego of, you know, like there's no need to be at the top of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. There's just a need to serve. There's just a need to serve, but you need to include yourself in those people who get served. And I was told by a psychic years ago, or maybe an astrologer, you're here to serve, but you're not meant to be the main course.
That's so interesting. I'm also curious to know, you know, you had talked about, you know, feeling a certain kind of way in terms of wanting to be respected by other doctors and such. How was your work received by your colleagues? How has it been received?
Well, now, you know, since all of my original colleagues are mostly dead, you know what they say, science moves forward one funeral at a time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which it does. So what's happened now that's so exciting to me, there's this whole group of younger doctors who love my work.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, I'll hear from people, oh man, you know, your work got me through medical school. Thank you so much. So now, you know, I'm embraced like, for instance, I'm going to be going to NYU School of Medicine to give a keynote speech at the annual Men's Health Conference in June of 2020. My friend Aaron Katz, who's the chief of urology at NYU, has invited me to do that. And he started the Columbia Center for Holistic Urology. Like, I couldn't believe my eyes when I was president of the American Holistic Medical Association. If you said the word holistic, you were like going to lose your license.
Yes.
So now so much has been accepted. So I realized that, you know, in the long sweep, it just takes a long time. But now I believe we're at a tipping point. I mean, whoever would think? I remember, you know, buying my food at the Good Day Market, right? The food co-op when my kids were little, where you had all the moths flying out of the grain bins. Now, Whole Foods, that's owned by Amazon, will deliver to your door. I mean, it's amazing what has happened in my lifetime.
Where do you think that shift came from, where just society just started to ignore the guys in the row that were rolling their eyes at that kind of stuff? Where do you think that holistic care and kind of what you're talking about began to be embraced?
I believe that when we moved into the new millennium with the two, it's partnership. And it's then the rise of male-female in partnership. Then, when we didn't blow ourselves up by December 21st, 2012, that's when the light really started to take hold in a big way. Now, here we are in 2020, and I went to see Frozen 2 with my granddaughter. That thing is like an oracle. I just couldn't believe it. It's about healing from patriarchy. How do you heal Earth? How do you heal what we've done to native populations? The sisters are the main character. Their love is the main character. Yeah, this one sister gets the guy, that's fine. But, you know, they're saving the planet through reparations to Mother Earth.
Wow.
And to the people, the native peoples, who have always had indigenous knowledge, you see. So I believe that, now you know that there were, for 30,000 years, goddess cultures, the ISIS cultures, where male and female were seen as equal, and where women had power as matriarchs, but not power over. Like everyone was empowered, and that was on the earth for 30,000 years. That's the original goddess cultures. Then the warring tribes from the north came in, and we got patriarchy, and everyone overdeveloped their left hemispheres and learned how to read. Now we're reaching balance. We have to. It's so interesting, this podcast, A Date with Darkness. Darkness has been running the planet for the last 5,000 years, and its time is up. So, you know, we had the Harvey Weinstein, Me Too, and then time's up. Time's up for darkness running the planet. So that means that, and let's be clear, darkness runs the mainstream media. Darkness runs conventional medicine, run by big pharma. This is a lot of darkness. They are trying so hard to keep market share, because what is happening? Consciousness is rising. And you will not be able to stop it anymore. People are waking up. They're listening to your podcast. They're listening to me. I'm not out there power over. Oh, if you don't listen, I'm going to take away your mailing list and censor you. I will not let you be found on the internet. It's too late. It's too late. Darkness will now lose. It's losing, which is why it's struggling so hard to, you know, it's like, pay no attention to the man behind the screen. I mean, that's how it is at this point. We're not paying any attention anymore. I mean, we see the man behind the screen, and it's a scared little white guy, or female who has become a scared little white guy.
So if people want to find you, get in touch with you, or as enamored with you as I am, how can they do that?
Just go to drnorthrup.com, which is my website, and you can find anything there. I have an e-news. I have, I'm on Facebook, Dr. Christiane Northrup. That connects to Twitter, and then I'm also on Instagram. And every now and then, I'll just be moved to do, some little Facebook Live. Like I did one today with an energy healer in the area. I just feel moved to do it. And what I love about technology is it gives each of us, doesn't it, the chance to have our own channel to find our vibrational match.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And one last question that I have for you. Do you ever wonder about the people, or ever just, casually does it ever cross your mind about the people that you gave up so much of your energy for? And do you ever think that those people are ever spending any energy thinking about you?
What a great question, because I heard from a whole bunch of them last year. Okay, here's the deal. They are still thinking about me, and they never stop. In a way, they never go away. They'll always check in. This is the thing about it. It's so cheeky. You think, how could you ever contact me again? They have no conscience. They can't feel it. You and I would be embarrassed beyond belief. We would never go back there. They never stop going back. They're always checking. Can I get some more? That tasted good. Can I get some more? I heard from 4 of them that I hadn't heard from in like 6-7 years, just this past Christmas.
Wow.
The difference is, this time I just laughed. I didn't answer. I didn't anything. I say, oh, they're just circling around, checking.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you'll bite.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we got a better fly. Let's see.
It would almost be interesting, and I don't know if this has ever crossed your mind, in your career. It would almost be very interesting to see, but to do a side-by-side comparison of the energy of those vampires versus you, and see how that shows up for them medically as well. The people who drain are drainers of energy, and see how that shows up for them versus the people who are giving away all that energy, and seeing how that shows up for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there was a medical study that I recently saw that pointed out that narcissists don't age well.
They don't. Well, of course, they engage in a lot of extracurricular activities that aren't good for them as well. So I'm sure that they probably, their health probably plummets. But yeah.
But what I find a lot for the empaths, our health, once we wake up, gets better and better.
Absolutely.
And better. It is so freaking exciting, right? I look at who I was when I was 25, and I go, oh, that poor thing. I just like where I am now better than ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and I appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that was a very interesting show. I really learned a lot from talking with Dr. Northrup about her personal experiences, and I hope that you did too. Would love to know what you think. Please do feel free to send me questions, comments, or concerns to adatewithdarkness@gmail.com. Would love to hear what your thoughts are. Also, if you're not a part of the group yet, you should come on over and join the free Facebook group where people are learning to heal from their toxic relationships. They are looking for support from you and looking to support you also. A Date with Darkness on Facebook. And also love to have you join the party on social media. Facebook and Instagram, which I will post the links to the podcast in the show notes there, as well as Dr. Northrup's books and some of the other books that she mentioned for my Amazon store account. And also, until next time, you guys take care of yourselves and be well, and thank you again for hanging in there and listening. Bye-bye.